Good evening, Bearcats. We are in 4.5 graphing day 2, and we're going to graph I'm going to graph two examples tonight of cosine and sine graphs with transformations, and then I'm going to assign 3 problems. I'm going to actually write them down for you, and I want you to have them written on your paper. And when you come tomorrow, you can use the graphs I gave you in class today if you want to use those blank graphs. When you come to class tomorrow, I want you to graph those graphs. So as soon as the bell rings, you should have your notes out from the 2 I've given you, and then you can graph the 3 I've assigned you for tomorrow. Then we will go over those and make sure that you understand those, and then we're going to work on our review for the rest of the period tomorrow. All right, so here we go. Let's take a look at a couple of things that are important when you look at these graphs. One, remember our base graph, again, I'm going to write it up here, would be y equals, and it is a, and then it's a trig function, okay, so whatever that is, cosine or sine, and then it's going to be b times x plus or minus c plus or minus d at the end. All right, in this particular thing, we've got the trig function, so let's take a look. Oops, sorry. That's weird. Okay, we've got our trig function here, so cosine is our trig function. Nothing is happening with x, so none of this is happening in this graph, but we've got a lot of stuff going on here with the a value, which is our -3. That means our amplitude is going to change, so our period for a cosine graph is 2 pi. Our axis originally is at the origin, so our axis is going to stay y equals 0. Our amplitude has changed to 3. The negative right here in the front means it's a reflection. Our period will stay at 2 pi because nothing has changed there. And nothing has shifted left or right. So this is a pretty basic graph. So let's see if we can go ahead and graph this. All right, so we know our axis is going to stay where it is, so that's just our major axis. Our amplitude is 3, so we're going to count up 1, 2, 3, and we'll count down 1, 2, 3. And we will actually draw our little highway here with our little dashed lines. And down here at -3. All right, the next thing we know is our period is going to be 2 pi, so I'm going to go ahead and measure out pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. And so if we start at 0 to 2 pi, there would be 3 points in the middle, key values in the middle. And we know cosine starts at the amplitude. So normally we would start at the top up here. But because of the reflection, we're going to start at the bottom of the amplitude. At our next key point, we'll go to the axis, we'll go to the top of the amplitude, back to the axis, and back to the bottom of the amplitude. And we'll go ahead and draw in that graph. So when we do, we'll be kind of curved. These is concave up, and then we're concave down, and concave down again, and then back to concave up. And that's what our graph would look like. So go Bearcats. If you need to stop and look at this again and see what we've done, then do so. We're going to go on to the next graph. Oops. Here we go. All right, our next graph is going to be y equals sine, parentheses, x minus pi over 2, and then plus 1. All right, this time let's look at our base equation. Again, y equals a, and then a trig function, parentheses, b, and then, bracket b, and then x minus plus or minus c, close the bracket, plus or minus d. All right, this time nothing is happening with a. There is nothing in front, so our amplitude will remain at 1. But notice we have something happening at the end of our graph right here, 1. So our axis has shifted up 1, or our entire graph will shift up 1, so our axis has shifted up 1. So our axis will now become y equals 1. Our amplitude is also 1. The next thing we look at is inside the parentheses. We don't have any b value over here, but we do have something going on inside. And remember, our x values always happen, things happen in the direction you don't expect, or they happen opposite of what you do expect. This is going to be a minus -2, so we're actually going to go to the right, not -2, pi over 2. We're going to go to the right, pi over 2. So our whole graph will shift to the right pi over 2. All right, let's start. We have to build a new axis. Our original axis was here, and now our new axis will be right here. So that's our new axis. So if you need to put the little marks on there, that may help you realize that it's an axis, or I highlight mine to make sure I realize that is now the axis I'm building everything off of. The next thing I look at is my amplitude is 1. So from the axis, I go up 1 and put in my little dashed highway. And down here, I go from the axis down 1, which is back to the axis, the original axis. That is my highway. All right. Sine graphs start at the axis. So normally we would start right here at the axis, but this graph has moved to the right pi over 2. So let's go ahead and put in our label our graph. So we're going to go pi over 2 pi, and then 3 pi over 2 2 pi, and then 5 pi over 2 3 pi, and etc. All right, since our original graph would have gone from 0 to 2 pi, our new graph is now shifted to the right by pi over 2. So this point will shift to here, and this pi over 2 will shift to here. So the domain of this graph now is going to run from pi over 2 to 5 pi over 2. Sine again starts at the axis, so this is where we'll start. There is no reflection, so we'll go to the top of the amplitude, back to the axis, bottom of the amplitude, back to the axis, and our graph will look something like that. You can see our domain runs from pi over 2 to pi over 2 to 5 pi over 2, and our range is from 0 to 2 in this case, 0 to 2. All right, those are our two graphs that I'm going to give you as examples. I now have 3 equations. I need you to write down all 3 equations. And these you're going to bring to class with you so that you can work these in class. The first equation you're going to write down is -2 sine x. The second equation you're going to write down, and you're going to graph tomorrow when you come to class, is sine, I should have said y, equals sine, parentheses, x minus pi over 4. And then our third graph we're going to graph is y equals 4 cosine, parentheses, x plus pi over 4, close the parentheses, plus 4. All right, you guys all have a great evening, and go Bearcats. Make sure you have your notes and have these written down and those 2 examples. See you tomorrow. Have a good night.